up, everybody? NT-certified here. It's Sunday, sitting at home, not doing much of anything today. So I'm looking at my retro games, and not just retro games, but my current games. PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Sega, Atari, all that stuff. And I just happened to be looking at my channel the other day, and I'm looking at like my analytics and all that stuff and seeing what videos are the popular videos. Besides my wrestling stuff, as far as like games go, like what are my popular videos when it comes to video games? And that is any type of game collection or game room tour seems to be the popular videos that you guys watch. So I'm gonna do videos based on my collections. And today, we're gonna start with my PS1 collection, because I was on Twitter the other day and somebody asked a question about the PlayStation Classic and what games would you like to see? What system was your favorite PlayStation system? And for me, it's the PS1, because the PS1 is what started it all, and they have so many classic games. So let's not waste too much time. I've already wasted over a minute on my intro alone. Let's get into the PS1 games in my PlayStation 1 collection. Alright, so we're gonna start with one of my favorite games, period, on any PlayStation system over any time period. This is 3 Extreme. If you have never played the Extreme games on a classic PlayStation system, I highly recommend it. It's so cool, it was different, it stood out. So what's cool about Extreme is that it's a racing game, but it's like an extreme sports like racing game. So you have BMX bikes, you have skateboards, and you have inline skates. So you're racing each other with one of these 3 like instruments to pretty much win your race. And it's just so cool. It's frantic. You can punch each other, knock each other off of their bike or their skates or their skateboards. It just made for a whole lot of fun with me and my friends while we were growing up as kids. And I still have the tag on it. Paid $8.99 for it at a store called Power Gamer, closer to the city in like Glenburnie, Maryland. Very, very cool game. I love it, and I will still play it today. Next up, we have Bruce Willis Apocalypse, a game that was supposed to be amazing. It was supposed to be this big, epic game. It's gonna be starring Bruce Willis. It turned out to be a big, huge flop. I picked this up on eBay, I believe, and I think I paid like $8 for it over on eBay. But I do not recommend this game. It's not that great. Next up is a game that is really good. This is Crash Team Racing. As you know, all of the companies tried to mimic Mario Kart in some way, shape, or form. Sony did that exact same thing with Crash Team Racing, but this actually turned out to be a pretty decent game. As you know, Crash was one of Sony's, huge money makers on the PlayStation original, and it was pretty much a no-brainer to create a game based off of the Crash franchise if they were going to do a racing game similar to Mario Kart. And I think it paid off, because I think this was a really fun game. Nowhere as near as good as the Mario Kart formula, but great game nonetheless. Alright, next game we got, this is Destrega. Now this game is not that great, but it kind of reminds me of like an early like Power Stone, where it's like a fighting game and it's multi-level. You can, shoot projectiles from certain areas and stuff like that. Nothing special about it, just another PlayStation game. No case, but this is Destruction Derby 2. One of my favorite games as a kid was Destruction Derby, because who doesn't want to just ride around and crash their vehicles into other vehicles and stuff like that. It's just cool. 2 for 1. Driver 1 and Driver 2. I enjoyed Driver 1 as a kid. I loved it. I really, really did. And then this is Driver 2. Driver 1, you could not get out of your car. Driver 2 allowed you to get out of your car. So it added just a new element to the game altogether. I would love for them to bring out another driver game, because I thought it was very, very cool for its time. And plus it had like a nice little story to it. It was like a cheap GTA of sorts. Next up, we're getting into my genre now. This is ECW Extreme Rules. Now, this was made by Acclaim, and Acclaim was the same company that made the WWF Warzone and WWF Attitude games. Well, they lost the license, and WWE went to THQ, who made classic games like WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy. So Acclaim went to ECW and made ECW games, and they were just as bad as Warzone and Attitude. Acclaim, why'd you make cheap wrestling games, man? Why? Why? We had classic characters here. RVD, the Sandman, Justin Incredible, Rhino. The potential was there, Acclaim. What's the deal? Next up is a classic. This is Final Fantasy IX. Now, you're gonna see a lot of Final Fantasy in this PlayStation memorabilia, PlayStation. So you're gonna see a lot of Final Fantasy. Okay, a lot of Final Fantasy in this PS1 collection. I want to go on record right now and be completely honest with you guys and tell you that I have never played a Final Fantasy game in my lifetime. Ever. And I'm almost embarrassed to even say it. So most of the Final Fantasy games I actually got in a game lot. A friend sold me a bunch of games, and he was a big Final Fantasy fan, so I have a lot of Final Fantasy games. But this is Final Fantasy IX. I know Final Fantasy VII is coming to the PS4. I'm probably not gonna buy it because I have all these other Final Fantasy games that I've never played, so I'm not just gonna add another one to it. Next up, this is the Final Fantasy Anthology. This has Final Fantasy V and VI in it, so that's another Final Fantasy in my collection. Moving on, we have Final Fantasy Chronicles, which also has, this is Final Fantasy IV, but it also has Chrono Trigger, which is, I know, one of the greatest RPGs of all time. I know all about Chrono Trigger. One day I might sit down and play them. I may not, who knows. All these freaking Final Fantasy games. Also have Final Fantasy Origins. This is Final Fantasy 1 and Final Fantasy 2. I'm not sure if they're considered, are they considered the originals? Did they start at 1 and 2, or did they start at, like, I don't know. The whole thing's confusing. Let me know in the comments below. And next up we have Final Fantasy Tactics. So this is another Final Fantasy in my collection. So all together I think I have 9, 5, 6, 1, 2, 4, and Tactics, which is too many not to have never played a Final Fantasy game. Next up is Intelligent Cube. Have no clue what the heck this game is, but it came in a game lot. It just looks like a typical, like, I don't know, smart person game, but it's probably not. But I see Parappa the Rapper on the insert, and that's a classic game. That's more my style right there, Parappa the Rapper. Next up, we have a PlayStation Underground Jam Pack. So Jam Pack, so I think they were like a monthly thing. Actually, no, they were seasonal. They were seasonal. Jam Pack was a seasonal thing, and it had a bunch of like video game demos on it. Xbox did the same thing with their first console. I have a bunch of those in sleeves with different like demos on it and stuff. But Jam Pack was really cool. It allowed you to play a bunch of different games that you may be on the fence about, or just games that you may not even know about. So the days of demos was just amazing back then, because I used to play them all the time, and over and over and over again. If you beat it, you just want to like play it again. Like, that's really cool. Let me play it. Next up is, this is The Legend of Dragoon. So this is a pretty cool game. Never actually played it myself, but I had friends that I used to watch play it all the time. I'm not really into these like types of games, but this also I got as a part of a game lot, and I'm just not letting these types of games go because I know these are really cool games, and one day I do want to sit down and I want to get into these like story-based like RPG style games because I know they're really good and I do appreciate a good story in a game. So I'm gonna hold on to those. Classic, one of the best of all time. This is Metal Gear Solid. I have a greatest hits version, I have a normal version. Metal Gear Solid sparked off so many like good vibes for me. I love games that are stealthy, I love espionage, I love to infiltrate. I'm not a big like run and gun type guy, so this type of game definitely stands out to me. I can still play it today, it's still classic. I love the like outdoors, like the snow theme, all of that is amazing. It's actually my favorite like levels in like GoldenEye, like 007 and stuff, where the levels like outside in the snow and stuff like that. It's just cool. Now, this is Metal Gear Solid VR missions. Now, this one I have never played. I've never got into the VR missions. I've mainly stuck to the mainline Metal Gears. Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear 2, and then they did Sons of Liberty and all those stuff. Yeah, all those. Mega Man X4. This is classic. This is one of the best Mega Mans in my opinion, being able to play as Mega Man and play as Zero and them having two separate stories. Also had this on my Sega Saturn, I believe, and it plays just as good on the Saturn, if not better on the Saturn than it does on the PlayStation. The Saturn version is a lot more rarer than the PlayStation version though, for obvious reasons. Nobody purchased the Saturn, so. Mortal Kombat Trilogy, great game. A lot of characters, a lot of characters. Actually, this isn't the best of the Mortal Kombat games, to be honest, but it does have all of the characters. It still plays well. Still a really cool game. I just wish that the Mortal Kombat movie, the second one, was as good as it could have been with all those characters in it. Like, talk about overboard. Like, I'd love to have another Mortal Kombat movie. Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed in this cheap case. I picked this up at a game store in Orlando. I think I paid like $2 for it. And I was like, okay, what the heck, I'll buy it. Need for Speed was one of the premier like car games back in the day. I remember, maybe it was Test Drive, but there was a game that I was playing and my cousin had it and the cars just moved at like a snail's pace. It might have been the first Test Drive. I think he had it on his original PlayStation, but it was so bad, so bad. NCAA March Madness 99, pass. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. This game scared me half to death as a kid. I love Resident Evil. It's one of the greatest franchises of all time, but I can never finish a Resident Evil. The only Resident Evil that I've ever finished was Resident Evil 6. And that's because it was pretty much like story driven. It wasn't as scary. And this one I would love to finish, but I'm so freaking terrified of Nemesis. I could never even stand up to him and go against him. I always have to run. I can never fight him. Never. Until this day, I still can't stand up to Nemesis. Even at 31 years old, I still can't do it. Road Rash, another classic franchise, a game that I would love to revamp and play today. Just a great formula, similar to 3 Extreme, but you're on motorcycles and you're using weapons to fight and knock each other off of their bikes. This is Road Rash 3D. This is the greatest hits version. So pretty much this was like an enhancement of the original. I don't think it holds up as well as the original. I mean, I always feel like the original is the best of everything. There's not many games that made sequels and the sequels are better than the originals, other than like maybe like a Halo or like Street Fighter 2, stuff like that. And this is Road Rash Jailbreak, and this one is just nowhere near as good as either of the other two. So we're gonna move past those. The original Silent Hill. I would put this in the same category as Resident Evil for myself, okay? Because Silent Hill is just creepy weird. Creepy weird. And I find myself having a hard time making it through a Silent Hill game. And the one that sticks out to me the most is the one that had the hole in the wall, where you were in the hotel room and the hole was in there and you could see, you could look into it and all that stuff. I think that was called Silent Hill The Room or something like that, but that's probably the one that I played the most, but I never finished it. Because when I would climb through the hole and I would make it to the other world, it would just creep me out. But anyway, I sound like a big wuss right now, right? SmackDown, the original SmackDown. If you don't know me, know that I am a huge wrestling fan. Probably one of the biggest wrestling fans that you'll probably ever know or get to know. This was the first game on the PlayStation with the WWF license. I don't think it was as good as the N64 games, but it had its own unique thing. It had a story mode, it was really cool. It had a creation suite, and it was a really good game. I think it was a decent game. I spent a lot of time playing this game. And then they came out with SmackDown 2. SmackDown 2 just blew up the roster, and they just built on the foundation that they already had with SmackDown 1 and just did it even better. Plus they added a match. Casket match, yes. They added the casket match, which was the first time that they had ever done that, and it was just cool. I mean, wrestling games. Another RPG, guys. This is Star Ocean, another game that I got as a part of a game lot. This is another RPG style game. From what I know, it's like an exploration type game, but another RPG nonetheless in my collection. Moving on, Siphon Filter 2. If there is one game that I would revamp in 2018, a classic Sony franchise, it's Siphon Filter. I spent hours upon hours upon hours on Siphon Filter. The first one, the second one, and the third one, and I loved all three of them. I can still play Siphon Filter today. This is part 2. Of course, when the first level, when you're on the train, how many times have I fallen off of that freaking train while it was moving? But $7. I paid $7 for this at the same store, Power Gamer. And then also picked up Siphon Filter 3. Not as great as Siphon Filter 2, but still a good game nonetheless. And this was also $6.99. I paid $7 for that Siphon Filter also. Moving on, I have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which is missing the booklet, but the back is still there. This is another classic franchise, one of the greatest sports, you would call it, sports games of all time, in my opinion. And then they made it even better when they made Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which made the first one look like just a starting point, and then they just blew it out of the water with part 2. The music, the gameplay, the atmosphere, everything was there. If they could still make games like that today, they'd be in good shape. Toy Story 2, not much to talk about. One of the best Disney Pixar movies ever in a game. Tekken 2. Tekken 2. So besides Mortal Kombat, besides Street Fighter, third for me would be any type of Tekken game. Tekken games are visually impressive. The engine is great. What else can I say about a Tekken game other than the characters are great and the gameplay is great, it looks great, the story's great. It's just a really, really cool game, and it's so easy to just pick up and play. You don't have to be an expert to play Tekken. I played a lot of arcade versions of Tekken over the years, and this is Tekken 3. Tekken 3 was Tekken 3 better than Tekken 2 for me? I think it was. I had a lot of fun playing Tekken 3, and I think, yeah, because I know Tekken 3 moved a lot faster than Tekken 2. That's when they kind of like got into their groove and started doing different things. But Anyway, this is Tetris Plus, classic franchise on the PlayStation, self-explanatory. Total number 1. Okay, now this is a fighting game with an odd premise, because it was a fighting game, but it was also had a story mode where you were walking through these dungeons and fighting these weird creatures. It was kind of weird, but the artwork is awesome. Awesome. Reminds me of Dragon Ball Z, and it also had a Final Fantasy sampler CD included in it as well. Next up is Tomb Raider 2, starring Lara Croft. Another great game. Another great game. And the PlayStation was just full of classic titles that are just still like unmatched today. Like Tomb Raider just sparked a revolution, especially for like female gamers. I feel like there was no Lara Croft in video games before Tomb Raider came, and this just started something new in gaming. Just so cool. I still remember the butler follow me around in the mansion in the first Tomb Raider. Triple play, pass, sports games. This is Vagrant Story. So looking at the artwork, this reminds me of Octopath Traveler. Looking at the artwork. But this is another like RPG style game. Not much information on this one. This one I also gotten a lot, and I've never, you know, taken the time out to play it, but it's a Squaresoft game, so can't be too bad, right? Next up is X-Men versus Street Fighter. So any type of crossover fighting game, I'm gonna play it. And if it's made by Capcom, I'm gonna play it. So it had the classic like Street Fighter style artwork, and they just merged in the X-Men, which are my favorite superheroes of all time. So the first person that I'm gonna play with is probably Cyclops, and then Wolverine, and then probably Gambit, then Rogue, then Storm, Jubilee, Magneto, and the list goes on and on and on. Awesome game. A lot of fun to play. Next up is WCW Mayhem. So this EA started making WCW games, which were oddly similar to the Acclaim games in the presentation and the way that the guys moved, and this just turned out to be a bad game. And I actually got this on Christmas for my N64, and I thought it was amazing because of the fighting engine, because sometimes it would be pretty impressive, but entrances were bad, visuals were bad, gameplay was bad, but I loved it anyway because I was young, stupid. But the entrances were just like so cheap, and everything was like a flat board. They just put the visuals of whatever the pay-per-view was on it. It was just a bad game, just overall bad game. So glad that EA is not making wrestling games anymore. Next up is Wing Commander. Actually picked this one. When did I pick this one up? I picked this one up off of eBay as well. Did I? No, I don't see myself buying this on eBay. Anyway, this has live action video, and I am a sucker for games that have live action video because to me it signals a bygone time, because games don't have real live action sequences in it anymore. So I thought that this was really, really cool, and it reminded me of Star Trek, although it's nowhere near as good or compelling as a Star Trek game. And the last game that I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen, this is Xenogears. Now, you probably didn't even see that because it's probably way too close to the camera. But this is Xenogears. So this is a game, this is more of like a mech, like battle type game. And if you know me, you know I do not like Mechazoid games. I call them Mechazords. And I don't know why I call them Zords, because that's a Power Ranger term, but I call them Mechazords. And this is a game where you are fighting in Mechazords. And this I also got in a game lot. So all of these like RPG style games I have in my collection, and they're just there waiting for me to play them, okay? And I'm not a big RPG style game. Like the last RPG I played was Octopath Traveler. I put maybe 20 hours into it, which surprises me that I was able to put that much time into a game. But once I got from vacation back in July, I kind of stopped playing it and I fell out of it. But I got my like 90-day, I guess like play review from Nintendo, and it told me that I played it for 20 hours in the last 90 days, which is ridiculous for me to spend that much time in RPG world. But regardless, that is my PS1 collection, guys. Thank you for watching. As always, thanks for listening to me ramble, because I ramble a lot. This is NTCertified. Thanks for watching. As always, please like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Become a part of the Certified Club. The next collection that I'm gonna do is Nintendo 64, so stick around for that, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.